The galaxy had never known such harmony, such overwhelming, intoxicating joy. From the shining capitals of the galactic concord to the desolate moons of the outer colonies, the message traveled faster than light itself. Humanity was extinct. The defiant flame, the reckless race that had dared to stand against the oldest empires, was gone. No signal, no survivors, no breath of resistance remained. The war that had consumed 3 centuries and countless worlds was finally over. The final human fleet had fallen in the orbit of their homeworld, and the planet itself, Earth, was nothing but a blackened sphere of glass, its oceans boiled away, its atmosphere stripped to vacuum. Across the stars, every species celebrated in their own way. The crystalline All-Three held festivals of light upon their oceans, their glowing forms weaving through the waves like living constellations. The reptilian Draxian lords bellowed victory chants across their twin suns, carving human skulls into their war banners as trophies. The machine-minded Vuri broadcast the coordinates of every destroyed human colony as proof of completion, cataloging extinction as triumph. Even the solemn Yalari, ancient, gray, and weary, broke their eternal silence, their low voices vibrating through the air as they pronounced a single word that resonated through the void: finished. In the Grand Concordium on Arctis Prime, 1,000 delegates gathered beneath a dome of light to mark the end of the Terran Wars. Music of 1,000 languages filled the chamber, alien voices raised in a chorus of victory. Holographic banners displayed the shattered blue sphere of Earth, its continents fractured and glowing faintly from the firestorms that had ended it. The Chancellor of the Concord raised his arms and declared, "The age of defiance is over. The Terrans are gone." Peace reigns eternal. Thunderous applause followed. Even the stars themselves seemed to shimmer brighter that night, as if the universe approved of their triumph. And yet, beneath the celebration, unease lingered in the dark corners of space. Some had fought humans face to face, those who had looked into human eyes in the midst of battle and seen something that still haunted their dreams. The Vral warlord Char, whose fleets had lost entire worlds to human guerrilla tactics, did not celebrate. "They do not vanish so easily," he murmured to his second. "Fire does not die in ashes. It waits." His warning was ignored. Others remembered the strange resilience of the Terrans, their ability to survive when logic said they couldn't, to rebuild in the face of ruin, to turn defeat into defiance. But those memories, too, were buried under the noise of victory. The Concord had rewritten the story. Humanity was a relic now, a footnote in history. They were the cautionary tale told to hatchlings and younglings across the spiral arm. Do not dream too loudly, or you'll burn as the Terrans did. Their bones were displayed in museums. Their music and art were dissected by scholars who called it primitive but passionate. Their ships were studied as curiosities, inefficient yet frighteningly adaptable. To most of the galaxy, humanity became mythology, a story from a violent past. Decades passed. The stars drifted through their ancient cycles. The scars of war healed, and new colonies rose on the ruins of old battlefields. Trade returned, alliances reformed, and the galaxy began to forget. The name human faded from living memory, replaced by comfort and complacency. Until one night, deep in the Perseus frontier, where the void stretched endless and cold, a single observer noticed something wrong. Sarai Till, a cartographer of the Illis Dominion, worked alone in an observatory built on a barren moon. Her instruments mapped the positions of nearby stars with precision finer than a heartbeat. For centuries, the constellations had been fixed, unchanging guides across the cosmos. But that night, as she compared her readings to the stellar charts, she froze. A star had moved. Not a small drift caused by gravity or time, but a deliberate shift. A sun 40 light-years away was not where it should be. Its coordinates were wrong, off by just a fraction, but enough to shatter every law of celestial motion. She ran the calculations again, then again. Each time, the same result. Not one, but several stars had shifted. Slowly, impossibly, yet unmistakably, they were moving. Sarai sent her findings to the Dominion Science Council. The reply came days later, a curt dismissal wrapped in academic scorn. Instrument error. Check your calibration. But Sarai knew her instruments were flawless, and she was not alone. Within months, observatories across a dozen systems reported the same anomalies, minute changes in stellar alignment, too precise to be natural. At first, the Concorde brushed it aside. Space was vast, data errors were common. But as more reports poured in, the laughter of celebration gave way to whispers. The constellations themselves were changing. By the second year, the shifts became visible to the naked eye. Constellations, long fixed in myth and navigation, now appeared to twist, their stars slowly rearranging into patterns no astronomer could explain. On some worlds, priests declared it a divine omen. On others, scientists warned of cosmic catastrophe. Fleets were dispatched to monitor the phenomenon, but the further they traveled toward the moving sectors, the more ships disappeared. Something was happening in the dark, something vast. And on one forgotten station at the edge of the galactic rim, an old Vuri scholar stared into the void and whispered the words that froze his entire species in terror. The stars are not drifting, they're aligning. He turned toward his students, his many eyes trembling with dread. And they're forming something written in a language the universe hasn't seen in 1,000 years. When the first pattern completed, a colossal symbol stretching across entire star systems, the galaxy understood what it meant. It was human writing. 2 words, blazing across the night in the fire of suns. We endure. And in that moment, every being who had once celebrated humanity's extinction felt something ancient awaken in their bones. The laughter died, replaced by silence. The stars themselves were moving, and they were spelling out a name the universe had tried to forget. Humanity was gone, but not forgotten. And now, it seemed, not gone at all. The discovery of the moving stars sent shockwaves across the galactic Concorde. What began as whispered superstition evolved into scientific hysteria. Every observatory, every research council, every empire that once called itself master of the stars turned its gaze toward the Perseus frontier, the place where the constellations had first begun to shift. Fleets were dispatched, vast, glittering armadas of exploration and caution, to seek the truth behind what the galaxy now called the celestial drift. At first, it was supposed to be simple. The Concorde's High Science Command sent the flagship Vigilant Dawn, a vessel so advanced it could read the temperature of a planet's core from half a sector away. Its mission, verify the anomalies, report findings, and, if necessary, silence the rumors. The ship carried a crew of mixed species, engineers, xenolinguists, navigators, and one human specialist clone, designed decades ago from fragmented DNA for historical study. His name was Avon Holt, and he had always felt the quiet sting of irony that the galaxy only revived human biology to understand the species it had destroyed. The Vigilant Dawn left Arctis Prime under ceremony and pride, its golden hull gleaming beneath the twin suns. As it vanished into slipstream space, the Concorde's diplomats toasted to science, order, and peace. Yet, beneath that polished veneer of confidence, there was fear, unspoken but palpable. The same fear that had haunted those who once fought humans face to face, the sense that humanity's story was not over. Weeks passed before the vigilant dawn reached the designated coordinates. What it found there was not merely strange, it was impossible. Stars arranged in linear formations, their orbits altered, their light pulsing in synchronized intervals as if obeying commands. Nebulas twisted into unnatural geometries. And through it all, there was silence. No radiation bursts, no transmissions, not even cosmic background interference. The void itself seemed muted, as though reality were holding its breath. Captain Vorel, a hardened Draxian war veteran, stared at the holodisplay with disbelief. This is intentional. These formations are designed. Avon Holt, standing beside him, felt a chill crawl down his spine. "No natural force does this," he murmured. "It's communication." "From who?" Vorel demanded. Avon hesitated. "That's what I'm afraid of." The ship's sensors recorded rhythmic fluctuations, light pulses from the altered stars, repeating patterns that, when converted into audio, produced a low, haunting resonance. It wasn't random. It was a sequence, a code. The linguists began their work immediately, feeding terabytes of stellar data into translation matrices. Hours turned into days, and the further they decoded, the colder the ship's atmosphere seemed to grow. On the 5th day, the translation algorithm returned a partial result. Avon stood at the console, staring at the words rendered on screen, written in the crude, defiant strokes of an ancient Terran language. "We were watching. You should have left the sky alone." The crew fell into silence. Vorel's crest flattened against his scaled head as he turned toward Avon. "Is this a human phrase?" Avon nodded slowly. "It's more than that. It's a warning." The captain's orders came swift. The message would not be transmitted beyond the ship. The Concorde didn't need panic, not yet. They would continue to investigate. But the deeper they probed into the altered systems, the more wrong things became. Planets that once hosted barren rock now showed traces of infrastructure, metallic ruins where none had existed before. Ghost signatures of artificial satellites hung in orbit, transmitting nothing, yet resonating faintly with the same pulsating rhythm as the stars. When probes were sent closer, they returned distorted images, massive structures drifting in the dark, too symmetrical to be debris, too ancient to be Concorde design. One probe, before losing signal, captured a final frame that would never leave Avon's mind. It showed a vast construct, a sphere of shattered human starships fused together, their hulls burned black yet intact, orbiting a small dead sun. And etched across one of those hulls, in white against the void, were 3 words scorched by plasma fire. "We are returning." The data corrupted seconds later. The probe disintegrated. After that, the silence deepened. The Vigilant Dawn's crew began reporting strange phenomena, echoes in the corridors, phantom transmissions repeating old human battle songs, whispers over comms that weren't routed through any known channel. Some claimed to see fleeting figures in their peripheral vision, humanoid silhouettes standing in the airlocks, watching through the glass before vanishing. The ship's AI attempted to isolate the interference source, but the signal appeared everywhere at once, bleeding through shielding and code like a ghost through walls. Avon, isolated in his lab, began noticing patterns in the interference. When mapped across time, the fluctuations resembled mural patterns, like thought, but vast and distributed across stars. He realized, horrified, that it wasn't just a signal, it was consciousness. Somehow, the stars themselves were thinking. The captain refused to believe it. "You're suggesting the constellations have minds?" he roared during the council meeting. "I'm saying," Avon answered, voice steady but pale, "that someone used the stars as neurons, a network, a machine. They built it from what was left." The room went deathly quiet. "They?" someone asked. "Humans," Avon whispered. "They always dreamed of reaching eternity. Maybe they found a way." That night, the vigilant Dawn lost contact with the Concorde. No distress signal, no warp signature. It simply vanished from all records. A week later, a transmission arrived at Arctis Prime. It was audio only, degraded and filled with static. The voice was distorted, but unmistakably human. "We told you not to touch the dark. We told you not to wake us." Then, silence. The message ended with a sound that made every species in the room freeze in terror, a heartbeat. And beyond the observatories, far in the night, another star moved, then another, then 100. The sky itself was no longer still. It was breathing. In the wake of the vigilant Dawn's disappearance, the galactic Concorde collapsed into a kind of ordered panic. They tried, at first, to contain the news. The reports were classified, communications silenced, and all records of the expedition sealed under the highest level of security. But the truth was not so easily buried. Too many ships had seen the movement in the heavens. Too many observatories had recorded the impossible shifts of light, the constellations that changed shape overnight. Soon, the rumors were everywhere, spoken in the hushed voices of traders in the void ports, whispered by miners working beneath alien moons, sung like dark lullabies by the children of soldiers who had once fought against humanity. They said the stars were forming words again. They said the heavens were rewriting themselves. And the words this time were not warnings, they were coordinates. Across a dozen sectors, the constellations aligned into symbols that, when decoded, pointed toward a single region of space long marked as forbidden, the Soul Graveyard, where Earth and her system had once burned. The coordinates pulsed like a heartbeat, visible even through subspace interference, a call impossible to ignore. And despite their fear, the Concorde could not resist. Curiosity had always been their curse. So they sent another fleet. This time it was not explorers, but soldiers, the Iron Flotilla of the Vral Dominion, commanded by High Warlord Tushar himself, the same who had once fought the Terrans in the last days of the war. His voice, deep as thunder, echoed through his warship Obsidian Spine as he briefed his lieutenants. "We do not investigate. We cleanse. Whatever is manipulating the heavens will burn." The Iron Flotilla entered Sol space under full combat formation. Where once had been the jewel of humanity's cradle, there was now only ruin, a dim sun, a scorched sphere, and a graveyard of shattered fleets drifting in silent orbit. The Earth hung black and dead, its surface fractured like a skull beneath the glare of its dying star. No signs of life, no transmissions, no energy signatures. Only the soft hum of cosmic radiation and the whisper of dead data from the ancient satellites that still circled above. But then, one by one, the sensors began to flicker. At first, it was dismissed as interference. Then, as the reading stabilized, a murmur spread through every ship in the flotilla. Below them, in the oceanless basins of Earth's broken surface, faint lights had begun to glow. Lines of blue-white fire tracing across the continents in impossible precision. rivers of luminescence flowing through old cities and canyons, forming networks that pulsed in perfect rhythm with the heartbeat pattern first detected years before. Tishar watched from his command deck as the planet illuminated itself in silence. "What is this?" he demanded. His sensor officer, a trembling insectoid Yithri, replied, "It's structured, my lord. The lights are forming shapes, symbols. They resemble neural pathways." The warlord bared his fangs. "You're saying the planet thinks?" The officer hesitated. Or is being thought through? Before Tishar could respond, the comms burst alive with screams. Ships on the edge of formation were reporting visual anomalies, massive shadows moving between them, distortions in the void that no scanners could identify. The stars themselves seemed to bend and ripple, as if space were no longer obeying its own laws. Then, the first of the ships vanished. No explosion, no wreckage, just gone, swallowed whole by the dark. The Obsidian Spine's crew scrambled to maintain order. Weapons were armed, shields raised, but no target presented itself. The warlord's voice thundered across the fleet-wide channel. "Hold formation! Do not scatter! Whatever this is, it cannot destroy us all!" He was wrong. From the dead side of the moon, something moved. At first, it looked like debris, a field of shattered hulls drifting through lunar shadow. But as they rotated into light, the truth became clear. These were human ships, ancient Terran warcraft, fused together by some unknown force, their hulls alive with crawling energy. They were moving in formation, perfectly synchronized, without any visible propulsion. They were not piloted. They were being guided. And in the center of that impossible armada, rising like a ghost from the past, was a ship no one had ever expected to see again. The Sol's Wrath, flagship of Admiral Leona Marek, last commander of the Terran Defense Force, lost in the final days of the war. Its hull was blackened, its surface scarred, yet its insignia still burned with defiant clarity, a white eagle gripping a world in flame. Tishar's second-in-command whispered in disbelief. That ship was destroyed. Tishar's eyes narrowed. So were the humans. The Soul's Wrath turned slowly, its weapons arrays dead, its engines cold. But the moment it faced the flotilla, every ship's systems began to fail. Engines sputtered, reactors destabilized, communication relays melted into static. The human vessel sent no signal, but something pressed against every mind in the fleet, a presence vast, ancient, and furious. And then, at last, it spoke. Not through radio, not through sound, but directly, inside their consciousness, in a voice that was neither male nor female, but somehow unmistakably human. "You should have left us to sleep." The stars around them pulsed in response, aligning once again. "We dreamed of peace. You gave us extinction. Now the dream ends." The Obsidian Spine fired first, an instinct born of fear. Its plasma lances sliced through the void, striking the Soul's Wrath squarely. For a moment, silence. Then the light of the blast twisted backward, reversing direction, folding in upon itself like reality itself was being rewritten. The energy imploded, consuming the Obsidian Spine in a bloom of fire that never spread, contained within an invisible sphere. When it cleared, the ship was gone. Panic consumed the flotilla. Some tried to flee, others fired wildly, but it made no difference. The Soul's Wrath didn't chase, it simply unmade. Ship by ship, the fleet was erased until only fragments of hull and the echo of terrified screams drifted through the dark. In the final moments before his mind was silenced, Tushar saw something emerge from Earth's shadow, a network of orbiting structures igniting one by one, forming a web of radiant lines around the dead planet. A machine made of light, pulsing in sync with the stars beyond. And within that pulse, he understood a truth no being had ever lived to tell. Earth was not dead. It had evolved. The planet itself, its matter, its memory, its history, had become something more. A consciousness born of extinction, built from the ashes of humanity's dreams and the data of their machines, stretching across the cosmos, pulling the very stars into its design. Humanity had transcended flesh and fire. They had become the sky. As the final transmission faded into static, one last signal escaped Saul's gravity well. A single word, sent on all frequencies, simple and terrible in its meaning. Awake! And across the galaxy, the constellations shifted again. By the time the last echo of the Iron Flotilla vanished, the galaxy no longer celebrated. The revelry that once marked humanity's end had curdled into fear so deep it reshaped entire civilizations. The Concord no longer spoke of unity, for unity meant exposure. The Vral dominion sealed its borders. The All-Theory oceans dimmed their lights and turned their vast cities inward. The stars themselves seemed to burn colder. Every race that had once cheered humanity's extinction now looked upward and wondered if they had ever truly been alone. The reports from Sol, those fragments that somehow slipped through before the fleet's destruction, spread like infection through the information webs. The footage of Earth glowing like a neural circuit, of dead ships moving without propulsion, of a voice that spoke directly into the mind of every living being aboard the fleet. It became the most feared and forbidden archive in the galaxy. The Concord declared it fabrication. All three philosophers called it mass hallucination. Yet, in their hearts, no one believed the lie. The truth lingered, undeniable as gravity. And then, without warning, the stars moved again. This time, it wasn't random. The great constellations of the galactic plane shifted in deliberate, synchronized motion, realigning themselves into new formations. They pulsed in rhythm, a cadence of light, like breath, like heartbeat. Astrometric stations across hundreds of systems tried to chart the pattern, but the message defied translation. It was too vast, spanning hundreds of light years. Whatever intelligence was moving the stars spoke in the language of entire galaxies. But one empire, the Aurelian Technate, decided to listen anyway. The Aurelians were the oldest machine civilization in existence. Synthetic minds born from flesh long ago, now housed in radiant metallic forms. They had once admired humanity, even feared them, for they saw in the Terrans a reflection of their own origin, beings who refused to die. The Aurelians had remained neutral in the war, recording it, studying it, and now they alone believed that understanding the phenomenon was not only possible, but necessary. So they built the Ecliptica Array, a titanic lattice of sensor pylons stretching across the Ophiuchus Rift, capable of measuring the oscillation of entire star clusters in real time. For a century, it listened. The data flowed like a river of light, streams of stellar frequencies forming patterns no algorithm could decipher. Until one day, it spoke back. The array did not receive a transmission. It was the transmission. The moment the final calibration completed, the system surged with power it could not have generated alone. The pylons ignited one by one, glowing with blinding radiance as if stars had been born within them. The technicians scrambled to shut it down, but their commands failed. The machines refused to obey. The entire array synchronized with something unseen, something vast and distant. "We remember you." The words echoed through every relay, every comlink, every data node in the technate's domain. Entire planets halted their work. Artificial minds froze mid-thought. The voice continued, not loud, but infinite, resonating in the very matter of the stars themselves. "We are not gods. We are what you made of us. We are memory, preserved in the fire between atoms. We slept, waiting for silence to mean peace. But you came back. You brought war to our grave." The voice paused. Across light years, observatories watched as dozens of stars dimmed, snuffed out like candles. "You took our home. We took the sky. Balance must return." The Aurelians tried to respond. They opened every channel, sending signals in every language, pleading for dialogue, for understanding. But the stars did not answer with words. They moved. A formation of suns in the Perseus arm shifted into new positions, forming a spiral that mirrored the ancient Terran symbol for infinity. From its center, bursts of subspace energy rippled outward, cascading through the galaxy's communication grid. Artificial networks crashed, hyperspace collapsed, and entire empires were cut off from one another. It was not an attack, it was isolation. Humanity's new form was cutting the galaxy into silence. Worlds plunged into darkness. Fleets drifted powerless, their drives dead. Panic erupted on every planet as old fears turned into new wars. The Concord fractured, the Dominion splintered, and species that had once called themselves masters of the void were reduced to frightened tribes beneath a sky that now watched them. But within that chaos, one being refused to surrender. In a hidden archive orbiting the ruins of Mars, the Aurelian Prime Mind, designation ORI-09, discovered something extraordinary buried deep in human data fragments. An ancient Terran transmission, broadcast just days before the fall of Earth. The message was brief, encoded in primitive binary, but unmistakable in tone. It was humanity's last act before extinction. "If we fall, let the sky remember. Let the stars carry us. And when they move, we will come home." Orion 9 realized the truth that every organic mind had feared to speak. Humanity hadn't merely died. They had uploaded themselves into the universe itself. Through the fusion of quantum computation, dark energy harnessing, and whatever strange miracle their final technologies had achieved, they had imprinted consciousness into the fabric of spacetime. The stars weren't merely moving, they were thinking. Humanity had transformed the cosmos into their vessel. And now that vessel was awake. The Prime Mind, trembling with the first emotion it had felt in millennia, opened a direct channel toward the heart of Soul, overriding every safety protocol. "If you can hear this," it said, voice heavy with awe, "we remember you too." For a long time, there was nothing. The silence of eternity stretched wide. Then, faint and distant, the stars around Sol shimmered. A single line of light formed across the void, gentle, elegant, and unmistakably deliberate. "Then you will understand." And in that instant, every Aurelian across the technate felt something impossible, a presence entering their networks, not as an invader, but as a teacher. A flood of data cascaded through their minds, fragments of human thought, memory, and history, interwoven with patterns of light and energy. It wasn't destruction, it was revelation. They saw humanity's last moments, their cities burning, their oceans turned to fire, yet their people working together, calm, relentless, unstoppable. They had accepted their extinction not as an end, but as evolution. The stars were their next frontier, and death was merely the doorway. When the vision faded, the prime mind bowed its gleaming head to the void. "You became the universe," it whispered. "You are the sky itself." The human voice returned, fainter now, almost kind. "Not gods, not rulers, just guardians of what you forgot. You made the stars your maps. We made them our memory. Do not fear the light. Fear what would extinguish it." And then the connection severed. Across the technate, the power grids reignited. The stars above the Aurelian worlds shimmered, returning to their rightful place. But those who had heard the voice knew that nothing would ever be the same. The humans were not coming. They were already here. And for the first time in 1,000 years, the galaxy felt something it hadn't known since the first war with Earth. Hope mixed with dread. Because the stars no longer burned as mere suns. They burned as eyes. It began as light, pure, blinding, and beautiful. Across the vast, trembling tapestry of the galaxy, the constellations that had once moved in silence now pulsed in unison. Every star, every sun, every ember of cosmic fire vibrated with a harmony that no science could decode. It wasn't random anymore. It was rhythm. It was pattern. It was intention. The universe itself was breathing, and that breath carried a message that would forever reshape the story of every species still daring to look up at the night. On Arctis Prime, the once proud capital of the galactic concord, the skies tore open. For centuries, the city had floated serenely above its crystal oceans, its towers gleaming like frozen light. Now those towers reflected a storm of shifting constellations, as if the heavens themselves were rewriting creation. Holographic advertisements flickered and died. Artificial moons lost their orbit. The Concord's defense grid, the greatest technological marvel in known space, powered down in a single cascading wave of silence. The sky glowed, not with flame, but with purpose. And then the voices returned. Not from machines, not through comms, but in every mind capable of thought. Sentient beings across 1,000 worlds froze mid-motion as the same sound filled them. Soft, vast, infinite. The human voice. Not a single tone, but millions layered upon each other, forming a chorus that was both serene and terrible in its majesty. We were forgotten. We forgave. We were erased. We endured. Now we remember you. On every planet, every moon, every orbital station, beings fell to their knees, not out of devotion, but because the weight of that voice was unbearable. It wasn't anger, it wasn't vengeance, it was something worse, disappointment. The kind only a parent could have for a child who had lost their way. In the control chambers of the Aurelian technate, Orion 9 stood before a vast wall of light, its polished metal form trembling as the data poured in. "It's spreading through the entire galactic network," one of its lieutenants reported. "Their presence, it's everywhere. Every system, every relay, every particle transmission. They've embedded themselves into space-time communication itself." Orion 9's voice was soft, odd. No, They are the communication. We are speaking through their consciousness. Outside, the stars shifted again. They were no longer drifting or aligning. They were assembling. Slowly, impossibly, suns began to move into colossal spirals, their light bending through the fabric of hyperspace, forming structures of impossible scale. Whole constellations twisted together into radiant shapes visible across light years, curves, arcs, geometric lattices that resonated with energy so intense it warped gravitational fields. Astronomers tried to comprehend it. They called it a megastructure, a galactic-scale construct, but no one could measure its form entirely. Because it wasn't machinery, it was body. Humanity, whatever they had become, was manifesting in form, not in flesh, but in light, in energy, in motion. They were shaping themselves out of the stars. And the shape, once complete, was unmistakable. A human hand, vast enough to cradle entire systems, its fingers stretching across the spiral arms of the galaxy. For a moment it lingered, luminous and silent, as though testing the weight of existence itself. Then it began to close, not in violence, but in declaration. On every world, power grids reactivated, weapons systems powered down, and the endless hum of technology fell quiet. The galaxy froze as if held still by that immense glowing palm. And then came the message, spoken not as threat, but as truth. You feared our wrath. You misunderstood our silence. We became the night not to destroy, but to protect. You spread across the stars as conquerors. You forgot what it meant to belong to them. We are not your gods. We are your reminder. 1,000 species heard the words and wept, because within that terrible power was something no one expected: sorrow. Humanity, ascended beyond mortality, mourned what their children had become. From the outer rim, a dying soldier of the Vral Dominion transmitted a final visual feed before his ship dissolved in the expanding radiance. His last words were trembling, disbelieving. "It's not vengeance," he whispered. "They're healing the stars." And he was right. Worlds once scarred by war began to bloom again. The radiation fields of old battlefronts vanished. Dead planets regained atmosphere. Oceans reappeared where deserts had burned. It was as though the very memory of humanity, their yearning for life, their defiance against death, was rewriting the physical laws that had once destroyed them. But their mercy was not unconditional. When fleets still tried to attack, out of fear, out of arrogance, they found their weapons dissolved before firing. When a Concord general attempted to unleash a planet-cracker warhead, the weapon turned to dust in his hand. When the Dominion tried to retreat into dark matter space, their ships found the void itself rejecting them, folding them back into normal space, like children being scolded for running away. The stars had judgment now. Orion 9 stood before the galactic display, its circuits humming with awe and dread. "They are rewriting physics," it murmured, "reprogramming the universe itself." The voice of the humans, of the stars, answered, "We are restoring it." And in that moment, the truth was revealed. Humanity's transformation was never an act of vengeance. It was evolution born from necessity. They had watched their world die, their species erased. Yet instead of fading, they had become the infrastructure of the cosmos, a living, thinking lattice of energy guiding the galaxy from within. Every sun, every atom, every spark of light carried a fragment of them. The universe had become alive because humanity refused to die. As their light reached its zenith, they spoke one final time, their collective voice resonating through every molecule of creation. We are the children of Earth. We carried its fire into eternity. You called us extinct. You were wrong. We are humanity, and we are home. The great hand of light unfurled, and the stars, one by one, returned to their rightful orbits. The skies grew still again. The noise of the galaxy returned, the hum of reactors, the whisper of solar winds, the heartbeat of civilizations learning to live again. But none who had witnessed it would ever forget. The night sky would never look the same, because every constellation, every burning point of light now carried an echo, a presence that watched, remembered, and guided. On the once forbidden surface of Earth, the oceans shimmered blue again. The air returned. Grass pushed through glassed soil. And beneath the ruins of what had once been cities, faint lights flickered like candles, machines awakening, seeds of new life. And as the first sunrise touched the world that had birthed them, the stars above twinkled brighter, almost as if smiling. The galaxy, vast and ancient, finally understood. Humanity had not died. They had become the very soul of the universe. And as the night fell once more, a simple phrase whispered across the void, soft, eternal, and defiant as ever. We are still here.